What if your dream of starting fresh in Arizona turned into a fight for survival under a burning sky? In 2025, tents sprawl across city parks, families sleep in cars near glowing skyscrapers, and the desert heat feels more like a trap than a promise. Phoenix, Tucson, even small towns, are overwhelmed by a crisis hiding in plain sight. People with full-time jobs, veterans, and teens are slipping through the cracks. Why is the system failing when the need has never been greater? This is the side of Arizona you won't see in travel brochures. Stick around, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. 1. The hidden surge, when sidewalks become home. What if the park where you took your kids last summer has become someone else's living room? What if homelessness wasn't just downtown, but quietly growing in the suburbs, behind gas stations, near schools, and along desert trails you once thought were empty? In 2025, Arizona's homelessness crisis is no longer confined to urban corners. It's spreading, quietly, quickly, and in places no one expected. From Phoenix's Papago Park to the canal banks of Mesa, from the riverwalks of Tucson to the motel parking lots of Yuma, makeshift shelters and tarps now dot landscapes once seen as symbols of opportunity. Recent estimates reveal over 7,000 individuals experiencing homelessness in Maricopa County alone, more than the population of many small towns. But the real number may be far higher. Because not all homelessness is visible. In Chandler, teens bounce from couch to couch with nowhere permanent to sleep. In Flagstaff, families huddle inside old SUVs parked near Route 66. In Yuma, elderly residents quietly rent by the week in aging motels, one missed paycheck away from the street. And yet, these people often go unseen. They don't always carry signs. They don't pitch tents in high-traffic areas. They keep moving, fading into the background of daily life. We see them, but we don't really see them. This crisis isn't just about housing, it's about identity. Arizona has long been painted as a land of renewal, where people come to start over. But for thousands, that dream has turned into a slow erosion of dignity, stability, and safety. So why, in a state that boasts rapid growth, a booming tech economy, and sunshine nearly every day of the year, are so many sleeping under the stars, not by choice, but by necessity? The answer isn't simple. But one thing is clear, this wave isn't slowing down. And if we don't confront it now, the cracks will only grow wider. Because when sidewalks become home, it's not just about losing shelter. It's about losing the belief that things can get better. 2. When rent becomes a threat. What if working full-time still couldn't buy you a roof over your head? What if surviving meant choosing between rent or food for your kids? In Arizona today, the price of shelter is pushing families into impossible choices. What used to be a stepping stone, finding an apartment, starting over, is now a cliff's edge for thousands. In cities like Tucson and Glendale, the cost of a modest one-bedroom unit has skyrocketed to over $1,400 a month. That's more than half the monthly income of someone making minimum wage, if they're lucky enough to be working full-time. And it's not just happening in big cities. In Mesa, young adults aging out of foster care face a brutal reality: no safety net, no family, and nowhere to go. Affordable housing is so scarce that they often bounce between friends' couches, shelters with waitlists, or the street. In small towns like Goodyear or Prescott, seniors on fixed incomes are evicted over a single late payment, sometimes caused by a utility bill they didn't expect. Even shelters, once the final lifeline, are cracking under pressure. In communities like Scottsdale, emergency housing centers are full. Families are told to wait a few weeks. But how do you wait when your only option tonight is a car parked behind a shopping center? In rural counties, the problem is worse. Some people walk 5 miles just to reach a food bank or caseworker. Behind the numbers are real people with broken routines and stolen stability. A server who worked every shift until rent went up $300 overnight. A single dad juggling 2 jobs and still sleeping in a motel with his daughter. Their stories aren't rare anymore, they're everywhere. Arizona's promise of new beginnings is fading fast. And when the rent becomes unaffordable, the fall can come fast and hard. Because in this crisis, losing your home isn't always a result of failure. Sometimes, it's just bad timing. And right now, time is running out for too many. 3. The high cost of surviving. What would you trade for a safe night's sleep? When the world takes away your stability, what's left to bargain with except your safety, your dignity, or your soul? In downtown Phoenix, where sports arenas glow and tourists fill trendy bars, a darker economy thrives in the shadows. For many unhoused women and youth, the price of a hot meal or a place to rest comes with unspoken risks. Some give up their safety in exchange for temporary protection. Others fall into the grip of people who promise help, but deliver exploitation. And Arizona's geography doesn't help. Highways like I-10 and I-17 stretch wide across the desert, making it easy for trafficking networks to move undetected. In 2024, Arizona ranked among the top 10 states for human trafficking cases, many of them involving vulnerable people already living on the edge. The heat, the poverty, the lack of services, it's the perfect storm. And those with no address are the easiest to lose. In places like Tempe, even college towns feel the ripple. Programs meant to support people in crisis are overwhelmed. Outreach teams are short-staffed. People slip through the cracks. Recovery centers, shelters, diversion programs, on paper, they exist. But in real life, they're underfunded, under-equipped, and too few to meet the rising demand. In rural counties like Cochise, where communities stretch for miles, the response is even bleaker. With no space or support, local officials often turn to arrests instead of aid. People are jailed for sleeping in public, for trespassing, for just trying to exist where they aren't wanted. The system treats the symptoms, not the cause. And through it all, the stigma remains. Being homeless still carries shame. People avert their eyes. Services treat them like numbers. Even when help is available, some are too afraid, or too used to being rejected, to ask. But behind every person out there is a story. Like Jamal, 19, who aged out of foster care with a backpack and a promise of a job that never came. Now, with a mentor and a plan, he's trying to build something stable, one day at a time. Because surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about trying to find a reason to keep going. 4. When trust breaks down. In the heart of Mesa, Arizona, just after sunset, Pioneer Park glows with soft amber lights. But the families nearby don't go for evening walks anymore. They say it's not fear, just uncertainty. Something has changed. Where children once played, now there are people quietly setting up tents. A man organizes his blanket beneath a tree. A woman brushes her daughter's hair beside a shopping cart full of clothing. No one causes harm, but everyone senses the tension. It's a silent divide that grows wider by the day. Public spaces are shifting, and so is trust. Across Arizona, from Chandler to Flagstaff, community members whisper the same concerns. Why are there more people sleeping outside? Why do the shelters keep saying we're full? Why isn't anyone doing anything? In 2024, a report showed a 35% spike in public disturbance calls in Central Phoenix. But most of those calls weren't about violence, they were about visibility. People are no longer hidden under bridges. They're in plain sight. And many feel helpless watching the crisis unfold without real solutions. But here's the other side of the story. Shelters are packed. Mental health resources are stretched so thin, some cities don't have a single public psychiatrist. In some areas, people wait weeks for an intake meeting while trying to survive outside each night. When there's nowhere to go, even hope starts to feel like a luxury. Then there are places like Tucson, where something different is happening.